Is Shell Rotella better than Amsoil Signature Series? We're gonna find out. I've tested for over 100,000 miles analyzing both T6 and Amsoil Signature Series 5W-40 in my 2019 6.7. I wanted to see, does a budget oil stack up against one of the best oils in the world? And when does it make sense to run each one of these? Now, I do want to note that I am making this video with the Motor Oil Geek, and neither one of us works with either Shell or Amsoil or takes money from them or is an influencer for them. I purely wanted to do this because Rotella is one of the most budget-friendly, widely available oils in the lower 48, and it makes a lot of sense to run this if you're gonna wanna change your oil more often, or at least that's what people that run this site, you know, it's the adage, hey, I'm gonna change my oil every 3,000 to 5,000 and just run a cheaper oil instead of getting Amsoil and running it 15,000 to 20,000. So I wanted to look at the financial aspect of that. So if you do 3,000 to 5,000 miles with this or Amsoil and extrapolate that out over 500,000 miles, what do the cost differences look like, first and foremost? But then most importantly, what are the wear differences between the oils in my truck? What I found is that the oil matters, and the kind of oil that you run matters a whole lot less than this other factor. And we're gonna get into that with Lake, but it really did blow my mind. And it is definitive proof that you need to do this one thing for your truck if you're planning to keep it for the long term. Okay, so first up for the cost comparison of 5W-40, I have the brand over there on the left. I have the oil type on the top, and really the Amsoil Signature Series is the exact same 5W-40, but I have the price separated based on whether or not you get the preferred discount or whether or not you paid full price. I think most people that use Amsoil get the, you know, Signature Series preferred customer discount, and then the base price of a quart of Rotella and a gallon of Rotella. And you can just kind of see the differences there, you know, across the spectrum of costs. Now, if we move on and take that cost per change data, you will see that I factored out the cost of the oil filter. So again, just separating, I thought it would be kind of funny to see, you know, if you change your oil every 5,000 miles for 500,000 miles, how much money do you spend on Motorcraft oil filters? Turns out it's just over $3,000. Basically, what you're looking at here is a huge cost difference when extrapolated out between Rotella and Amsoil Signature Series. I mean, that's like $12,000. Now, for most people, you know, maybe you're going to keep a truck for 100,000 miles. So you're looking at, you know, still not insignificant amount of money, you know, $2,400 difference, right, between Rotella and the Signature Series. Now, it does get closer when you move to the preferred discount, but you're still paying with the preferred discount almost double every oil change than you would with just regular Rotella. When things start to get interesting, so that was a 5,000 mile OCR, and then we have a 10,000 mile OCR, and you can see that, you know, the cost, you reduce your cost significantly with the Amsoil by running it 10,000 miles. And again, this was just, it's the same extrapolation. You know, you'd spend half as much on filters. Instead of $3,000, you'd spend $1,500 on Motorcraft oil filters. Again, the cost per change is exactly the same. And then it gets really interesting when you go to the 15,000 mile OCR. You know, you're kind of getting close to where Amsoil is paying for itself, especially with the Signature Series preferred customer discount. So, you know, if you could run their oil and their filter out to 15,000 mile OCR or longer, then the economics are really starting to make sense. And again,
so
some people,
$5,000 essentially to do 15,000 mile oil changes at 500,000 miles. Go back one slide. What was Rotella at 10,000? $4,000, right?
4,000.
So Rotella, go back to 5.
8,000.
You're at 8, right? So you could potentially save yourself some money if you could go further with the Amsoil Signature Series, but you're to make it even money wise, you're gonna have to go further with the Signature series than you do Rotella.
The two strategies that I saw, and we're going to look at the actual data because I know that's why you, the viewer, are probably here, is you also want to see the wear data that I got from the samples, not just a breakdown, because anyone could calculate this out. Based on my wear, so I did run a sample of Rotella out to 10,000 miles. So I would feel super comfy running Rotella for 10,000 miles. I think that would be a great strategy. I think you could, or not you, but me specifically in my scenario, could potentially run it out to 15,000. And as soon as you're doing that, I think you have a very compelling argument to just run Rotella. It's very widely available. Where, again, what we just said, where Amsoil starts to get very compelling is when you're getting over 15,000 miles. Okay, so we will start with Amsoil, and we also conveniently have the zero sample right here. The Amsoil, actually, when I had started working with Lake, I had already run a few samples through another oil analysis company, and so that was why I started right at 9,000. So my Amsoil test already had quite a few miles on it. The only thing I'll mention here is that these first two tests are prior to fixing my DPF permanently. And so you'll see some of the differences in data, and that is kind of what's really remarkable about these. The only other discrepancy between these samples, these first three samples, I was not using an OEM filter, I was using Amsoil's filter. So kind of interesting here to see their filter versus just Ford OEM and Rotella. I mean, you can kind of see where I had some issues, mostly around fuel dilution. You know, the oxidation value was okay, wear metals weren't terrible, but
no, everything's good. I mean, you're right at 4 to 5 parts per million per 1,000 miles. So that normalized wear rate is good, right where you want it to be. The trick is, like you mentioned, is fuel dilution. And to be honest, that's the real limit typically of how far people can go. I know people are skeptical about longer oil change intervals. I understand why. From a chemical perspective, these oils are capable of going very, very long drain intervals as long as they're not contaminated. As a used oil analyst, right, I'm looking at hundreds of oil samples like these every single week. What I see is rarely is the oil chemically degraded before the customer decides to make the change. What normally happens is we have a contamination problem, be it fuel or silicon, other things, bad filtration. That's normally what compromises the oil drainer. But when your oil is clean, cool, and dry, guess what? It can go really, really far. But more times than not, the oil's not clean, cool, and dry. Something's affecting it. And that's what you can see right here, right? The oxidation level is telling you that oil's not dead, at 10,000 miles. But we have fuel dilution building up, which says, well, how far I can go with this product, regardless of what brand it is being limited by the contamination.
And here we have the Rotella sample. So you can see baseline here, and then the 3 Rotella. And because I was starting from scratch, and this was kind of a scenario where I wanted to take this first one to 5,000, but then I had a trip coming up, so I changed it because I was like, I'll change early. And not to mention this one was kind of a flush anyway. So those first, changing over, really these two are probably where you get to the point where, you're getting some good wear data and still, pretty solid, definitely less miles than what was on the Amsoil. And once we get out of the sample sheets, I did take averages of both these, and I show the average miles on each sample. So that is kind of a more complete picture, but you can kind of get a sense of where I was at.
And you see the same thing here, right? That it's the oil's still in grade, wear's still even, you're still below 5 parts per million per 1,000 miles. So there's not a big difference in wear. Viscosity is still in grade, but the real limiting factor here still is fuel dilution. That's just the thing that's saying, okay, you can't really just go really far because fuel dilution's creeping up. That's your limit.
So then the last test What happened to fuel dilution? Well, I think what's crazy too is also fuel dilution and then soot. Like you can see the soot value for, oh, well, we didn't have it in that one, but we started tracking it here. Sorry. 0.66. Yeah. But I mean, that's really what I like. And those are the two main contaminants. I mean, obviously you have water and glycol, but that's a positive negative thing, you know? So,
that's what happens. You know, the EGR system is going to be bringing back in soot. That's the reason why they went from the CI4 plus oil to CJ4 plus oil, you know, back in the late 2000s. That was because we put EGRs on the vehicles, and EGRs on diesels increased the soot load. So they had to change the dispersant package in the oil to keep the soot from overwhelming the engine and causing excessive wear. So anytime you can bring down contamination, like we said earlier, that's going to be a good thing for terms of engine wear, but also enables extended oil life. And so when the fuel dilution goes down, when the soot goes down, well, guess what? The wear went down. Shocking.
Yeah, almost cut in half. Is that what that looks like? Hold on, let me go back. No, not quite, but well, almost.
It's
so
I
had this 26. Yeah, it is a bunch. Yeah. No, that's 39, 54. Yeah, a lot. Anyway, this is the average with DPF problems. So DPF EGR on the truck, kind of average total metals over the average sample miles. Amsoil is still pretty impressive because, I mean, if you double the mileage on the Rotella sample average, you know, you're still potentially over Amsoil. Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, fuel dilution, again, the Rotella maybe had slightly higher fuel dilution, but I don't know, you know, again, that's kind of a negligible amount in my opinion. And then
a lot of that can be varied seasonality, right? So if you're taking samples in the summer versus the wintertime, you're going to see about a 1% higher fuel dilution in the wintertime versus the summertime just because of ambient temperatures. So there's not a difference here.
And then the 11.4 is, what the oxidation value is at in the bottle sample, and that's how much it oxidized. So a 16.5 to 17.47. Again, the Amsoil got more oxidized, but it was also ran longer. And then and then switching over to with the DPF fix, no more contaminants. I mean, that's total metals went from 45 to 23, and the sample on this one single sample is longer than the average. I mean, my average sample on the last slide was 10,000. And now we're at 14,396.
Look at the difference in oxidation. Right, so this is the key. Look at the difference in oxidation change, right? You went 5,000 miles further. From the same starting point, you only have one absorbance unit increase. That's it. If nothing else tells you that contamination isn't the enemy of your oil, this is the evidence right there.
Yeah. No,
that oil's not
remarkable.
Close to being degraded yet. Right? This oil could easily, based on this, go 25,000 miles. Piece of cake. It's not even aged yet.
Your face when you saw those numbers was priceless. And
this is stuff I love, right? This is why I love the data, right? Because people can have all their opinions they want. At the end of the day, the only that matters is the data. And what does your engine like? What does it work for you? And this is clear cut. You fix the contamination problem, and all of a sudden it's like you have a whole brand new oil. It acts completely different. And this is what we see on a daily basis, right? Contamination is the enemy of your oil. If you have good oil, like the Amsoil, and you keep it clean, it can do pretty amazing things. But if you don't keep it clean, it doesn't matter what oil you have.
Either one of these oils, I think you can make an argument for either one, again, based on the cost. On the one hand, you could be like, Rotella is half the cost of Amsoil, and it matched it for wear going 10,000 miles. Yes, that's 5,000 miles less, but if you're not driving, 50,000 miles a year, maybe you drive 20,000 miles a year. You only got to change your oil twice a year. Rotella to me is a very compelling price point, and I guess the wear just doesn't lie to me. You know what I mean? There was someone saying too that like because Rotella is a Group 3 oil, it's not a true synthetic or something like that. I don't know.
Both
I
of
know
these oils are Group 3.
Okay.
The evidence is on the page right here.
Yeah.
There aren't PAO oils that don't have esters with them.
Okay.
Right. So the Amsoil Signature Series, passenger car oil, that oxidation value brand new out of the bottle is in the high 50s. Why? Because it's a PAO ester. That ester that's there to solubilize the base stock is going to drive that up. So when you look at that product with a oxidation level of 11.4 out of the bottle, that is a Group 3.
Okay.
That tells me it's a Group 3. That's not a PAO. Or there may be some PAO blended in there. I don't know their exact recipe, right? But I can just tell you as an analyst, you look at oil and you're formulating, you're going to have ester with PAO in order to solubilize a very large additive package like a diesel oil. And when you do that, that oxidation level is going to be higher, which is why a lot of times you'll see Rotella is in the 18, 19 range, brand new, because of all the dispersants and all the stuff in there. So the point being is these are both Group 3s. And for all the people that want to say that Group 3s aren't real synthetics, we had a video on that. Just go watch it.
I'll link to it.
This is one of these overblown, hyped up things because you've just shown the data here that a Group 3 oil is more than capable of going 15,000 miles and not breaking down. The science doesn't lie. The data doesn't lie.
No.
Don't listen to the people speculating. Follow the data.
Do the thing, because the oil and filter matter less than the contaminants. I think that's what I learned from this. I guess it would have been cool to maybe run the Rotella to 15K, which maybe I'll try at a later date. But, same OEM filter and basically the same wear. The data that this shows that we, have to have those emissions devices on our vehicles is pretty sad, because it is literally reducing the life of your engine, which is, I don't know how I feel about it, but that's a video for another time.
Again, if we wanted to step back, right, take the emotion out of it just for a second and say, okay, we've been saying for a while in multiple videos that contamination is the enemy of your oil. Well, this test proves it. With these devices on the vehicle, it makes it rebreathe the exhaust. And when it does that, it causes more contamination. And that contamination leads to higher fuel dilution, higher wear. The DPF regens are not good for the engine because it dumps excess fuel into the engine, which you see shows up in the engine oil. And you saw that the end result of that is higher wear and shorter oil life. When you remove the contamination, oil life goes up and wear goes down. It's that simple. And the takeaway from the video really should be that, hey, you can go to Walmart and buy a Rotella T6. It's a great oil at a very affordable cost. And you know what? You can go 5,000 mile oil change intervals and not think anything of it, probably, for most people, right? There's going to be some cases where the duty cycle and the situation is more severe and you may have to run a short oil change interval than that, but you're not going to know that unless you're doing oil analysis. But if you're the 5,000 miles and change it kind of person, Rotella is your easy choice. If you're I want to maximize my oil change intervals, I want to do the least amount of maintenance as possible, like back when you're hot shotting days, right? You don't want to have to pull over every 5,000 miles and change the oil, because that could be like every week,
Yeah.
You want to go further. Well, now the Amsoil gives you the opportunity to do that. And you can find that right spot. And again, kind of like Derek did, he didn't just arbitrarily pick 25,000 miles. That number came to him by doing oil analysis over time and determined that's a safe oil change interval for him, where the oil's still good. We're not running it till the oil's dead, right? We're looking at the wear rate, not just the chemicals, right? We're looking at everything. We're looking at oxidation. We're looking at contamination. We're looking at wear rate. We're using all those factors together to determine when is it time to change the oil. Because as long as everything's good, keep using it. But once one of those starts to go bad, then it's time to change the oil. So it's not factoring on one thing like PBN or something like that, because I've heard the stories, oh, you can't trust that because it's not, and I agree, you shouldn't. You shouldn't use TBN as a point to change your oil because it can mislead you, right? But if you look at all three factors, oxidation, which is a better gauge than TBN, contamination, soot, fuel dilution, and look at the wear rate, that's going to tell you the health of the oil and the health of the engine. And as long as that oil is healthy and the wear rate's low, literally there's no reason to change the oil.
I appreciate you being here, Lake, and you, the viewer, for sticking around. And yeah, maybe next year I will have another one of these done for a comparison. It should be a little quicker though now, because I'm not doing two oils. I'm going to just do one and then a video and then one and then a video. So we have a formula now and we can work towards that. But yeah, be sure to subscribe to the Motor Oil Geek, and I will put a link to his video below on oil contamination. And we'll see you next year on Power Stroke Maintenance. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See ya.